Dear students, welcome to the science class. In the last class, we completed an interesting topic that is nothing but nutrition in the plants. As well as we discussed about what is nutrition, what is the different type of nutrition, that is nothing but we discussed about the autotrophic nutrition as well as heterotrophic nutrition, where autotrophic nutrition is nothing but it is the preparation of their own food by themselves, whereas heterotrophic nutrition is nothing but they are dependent on the other beings, they are dependent on the other living organisms, so that they should feed on those things, right? As well as we discussed about the photosynthesis in the last class only, that is nothing but preparation of their own food by themselves in case of plants, as well as we discuss about the different type of nutrition in the plant, that is nothing but parasitic nutrition. We discuss about the insectivorous nutrition. We discussed about the symbiosis, that is nothing but symbiotic nutrition. If you remember, that is relationship between husband and wife. We have taken the example of husband-wife relationship. In the same manner, what we discussed about the saprotrophic nutrition in the last class. So that we discussed about the photosynthesis process. In today's class, we are going to discuss about the nutrition in the animal beings. Now, if we take the example here, if we take the example of the photosynthesis only, right? In case of plants, they are going to get its energy, or they are going to get their food items for the purpose of the energy as well as for the purpose of their growth by preparing their food themselves. Now, is it possible in animals or is it possible in human beings for preparing their own food? Is it possible? No, it is not possible. We don't have the chlorophyll. We don't have what? Don't have a stomata for the intaking of the carbon dioxide. We don't have any parameters, any component which is going to prepare its own food. It is going to prepare its own food. We don't have any equipment parameters for the purpose of the photosynthesis. So it is not possible in the animal beings as well as human beings apart from the plants to prepare their own food. Then how does the animal beings and human beings and aquatic organisms are going to intake their food? From where does they are going to get their food? How they are going to get feed on those things? How the energy is going to utilize for the purpose of the growth in case of animal beings, in case of human beings? So that all those things we are going to discuss in this topic, that is nothing but nutrition in animals. So that now if we take the example for the purpose of the food, we are going to take the example of human being only. If you want, you can take the example of animal beings also, but I am going to take a general example, that is nothing but human being. Now, why we require food? For the purpose of the growth, for the purpose of the energy, for the purpose of the growth of the muscular things, for the purpose of the bones to become stronger. Right? In all cases, we should survive. As well as we should grow. For that reason, we are going to depend on the nutrition, that is nothing but we are going to feed, we are going to intake the food. Now, from where does we are going to intake the food? From where does we are going to get the food? Is it possible to prepare our own food by ourselves? No, it is not possible. So that we are dependent on the plants. We are going to take the fruit as the source of the food, as well as we are going to take the vegetables. We are going to take the leaves as the source of the food. We are going to take the fruit, seed, stem, root as the source of the food. From where does we are getting the food? We are getting the food from the plants. Right? We are getting the food from the plants directly as these sources. In the same manner, we are dependent on the plants also indirectly. Indirectly also we are dependent on the plants. How we are indirectly dependent on the plants? If we take the example of the mutton, we are going to eat the mutton, we are going to eat the egg, we are going to eat the chicken. So from where does we are going to get the mutton, chicken and egg? We are going to get the mutton from the goat or sheep. In the same manner, we are going to get the chicken and egg from the chicken only. That is nothing but hens. Right. So we are getting the food items from these animals, that is nothing but goat and sheep as well as hens. From where does those animals are getting their food? Now is it possible to take the chicken or goat which is undeveloped? No, it is not possible. So that for the growth, for the development of those things, they are dependent on what? They are dependent on the other type of food. So that from where does they are going to get the food? They are getting the food from the plant source only. So that the grass is going to be eaten by the goat, the grass is going to be eaten by the what? Sheep, and the grains which is going to be eaten by the chicken or hens, so that they are going to become stronger, healthy, so that on which we are going to bring, or we are going to take the mutton and chicken from those things. If that is the so thing, we are also indirectly dependent on the plants. How? For the purpose of the mutton and chicken, we are dependent on what? We are dependent on chicken. We are dependent on what? We are dependent on the goat and sheep. Those goat and sheep are dependent on what? They are dependent on what? Plants. So that indirectly for the growth of those things, plants are required. For food purpose, we are dependent on what? We are dependent on the hens and sheep and goats. So that indirectly also we are dependent on the plants. Indirectly also we are dependent on the plants. Directly also dependent on the plants, as well as indirectly also we are dependent on the plants. In the same manner, all the animals also, whichever animal you take, all the animals are also dependent on the plants, either by directly or by indirectly. For that reason, we are dependent on the plants as well as animals. For that reason, nutrition in the animals is known as heterotrophic nutrition. Nutrition in the animals is known as heterotrophic nutrition. So that if you check that thing, if you check this fact, that is nothing but all the animal beings are directly or indirectly dependent on the plants. Right? They are directly or indirectly dependent on the plants. In the same manner, plants, for the growth of the plants, what is required? They required photosynthesis. They required what? They required photosynthesis. Without photosynthesis, is it possible that they are going to grow? No, it is not possible. They will be not grown. If there is no photosynthesis, if there is no growth of the plants, is there animals are going to feed on those plants? If there is no plants, no, it is not possible. If there is no plant, if there is no animal, that means there is a life on the earth. Is it possible? Is it possible of the life on the earth? No, it is not possible. So that life on earth is dependent on what? It is dependent on only one process, one single process. That process is nothing but what? It is the photosynthesis. It is the photosynthesis. Without photosynthesis, there will be no growth of plant. Without plant, there will be no food items for the animal beings. Without food, there will be no animal beings. So that for that reason, it is the ultimate process. Photosynthesis is the ultimate process. Without photosynthesis, there will be no life on the earth. Because of that, photosynthesis is a very, very essential process in case of all the living beings. In case of all the living beings. As well as it is going to provide us with the oxygen for the inhalation, for the respiration. So that it is another point. In this way, it is very, very important. If we take the example, if you correctly studied the previous topic, that is nothing but where I have given a point, that is nothing but sun is the ultimate source of energy. Why sun is the ultimate source of energy? Sun is helping in the plants for the photosynthesis. Sun is going to give the sunlight for the purpose of the photosynthesis in the plants, so that they are going to prepare their own food. Because of the photosynthesis, plants are growing. Because of those plants, animals beings are feeding on those plants. Animal beings are feeding on those plants. So that without sun, without sunlight, is it possible the photosynthesis is going to occur? No. If there is no photosynthesis, is it possible the animal beings are going to survive without food? No. So that because of that thing, we can interlink that sun is the ultimate source of energy for the plant as well as animal. So that it is the ultimate source for all the living beings. Because of that, sun is the ultimate source of all the living beings. So it is all about Why? Photosynthesis, sun, and how the animals are going to depend on the different animal beings or different living beings. It is all about those things. In the same manner, what is the nutrition in the animals in general? What is the nutrition in animals in general? That is nothing but animal nutrition includes nutrient requirement. It includes nutrient requirement. If you remember the 6th class, there is a very different type of nutrients which are required by our human body for the purpose of the growth of the different things. For the purpose of the growth, we require different nutrients. For the purpose of the energy, we require different nutrient. In the same manner, for the purpose of the stronger bones, we require different nutrients. So that animal nutrition includes that thing, that nothing but nutrient requirement. Second mode of intake of the food. Second mode of intake of the food. How does we are going to intake the food? We are going to intake the food by mouth. In some cases, they are going to intake the food by chewing. In our case, we are going to chew that food. In some cases, they are directly going to swallow those things. In some cases, it is siphoning. In some cases, it is swallowing, sponging, sucking. So that these are the different modes of intaking of the food, as well as utilization of the food by the body. So that nutrition in animals includes nutrients requirements, second intaking of those nutrients, third utilization of the body by those nutrients. All those things together is nothing but it is the nutrition in animals. So that what are the various nutrients which are required by our body? If you remember the previous class, that is nothing but in the first class, that is nothing but in the nutrition in plants, we discussed about the different type of nutrients. As well as if you remember the 6th class, 6th standard class, 2nd chapter, that is nothing but the components of the food. If you remember, there are 6 type of nutrients, 5 type of nutrients which are essential, another which is essential component but it is not included in nutrients. So that what are those? Those are nothing but the carbohydrates for the purpose of the energy, fats for the purpose of the energy, vitamins for the purpose of the protection of our body, minerals for purpose of the growth of our bones as well as gums. In the same manner, proteins for the purpose of the stronger growth. It is for the purpose of the growth. In the same manner, roughage and water for the purpose of the cleaning up our body. So that these are the essential nutrients which are required by our body. Now next, not only our body, by animals also. Next, what is the mode of intake? If we take the example of the snakes, that is nothing but if we take the example of the python snake, as well as if you take the example of the anaconda, if you see in the movie Anaconda, how they are going to intake the food? They are going to intake the food by swallowing it. They are going to intake the food by swallowing it. In the same manner, if you take the example of the insects, that is nothing but if you take the example of the mosquito, they are dependent on the blood. They are dependent on what? They are dependent on the blood thing. How they are going to take the blood out? They are going to suck that blood out. By sucking, they are doing it. Right. If you take the example of the starfish also, starfish is mainly dependent on the food. That is nothing but they are dependent on the smooth animals, the animals which are very smoother. If you take the example of the earthworm, the surface of that earthworm is very smooth. Like that thing, they are not dependent on the earthworm, but those type of skins, those smooth skin animals, they are dependent, and they should be covered in the shells. Those animals should be covered in the shells. So that the shells of calcium carbonate. So that the starfish is dependent on the animals which are smooth and which are covered by the shells which is made of the calcium carbonate, So that what is the shells in general? Shells are nothing but if you see in the eggs, general eggs, the eggs are covered with a coating, white coating if you see in those things. That white coating is nothing but the shell of the egg. It is the shell of the egg. And that white coating is made up of the calcium carbonate. It is made up of the calcium carbonate. In the same manner, the shell containing animals which are made by the calcium carbonate, on those animals starfish is dependent. How does the starfish is going to feed on those things? It is going to get its stomach out from the mouth. Starfish, if you remember, starfish looks like star. It looks like this. It looks like this. It is going to get its stomach out from the mouth, and it is going to swallow the smooth animal which is present in the coating of that shell. That is nothing but calcium carbonate coating. And again, after the taking that food for the purpose of the digestion, it is going to take its mouth again inside it is going to take its stomach again inside the mouth. In this way, it is going to depend on the food, different type of mode of the different intaking the food. It is the mode in case of what? In case of starfish. In general, these are the different things. These are the different modes of the intaking of the food in the animal beings we discussed. So that what you have to do, you have to make a list of the different animals. You have to make a list of the animals which are going to feed on different things. In the same manner, you have to name the mode of feeding there. Name of the mode of the feeding there. For example, if you take the infants of the human beings, the smaller kids, for the source of the food, on which thing they dependent on the milk from their mother's milk. How they are going to feed? They are going to suck the milk from their breast. They are going to suck the milk from the mother's breast. So that this is the mode of nutrition. The kind of the food they are going to take the milk of the mother. So in this way you are going to make the list. As well as you are going to, if you take the example of the mosquitoes are dependent on the blood of the human beings. How they are going to take that thing? They are going to suck the blood from the human beings. In this way you have to make a list up to 10 to 15 animal beings, as well as kind of the food you have to make list, as well as you are going to make the list mode of the feeding all the animals. You can take the example of the snake swallowing. In the same manner you are going to make the list of those things. Right. In general, all we discussed about how those are going to dependent, what are the different kind of nutrients. And now, what actually happens in the nutrition and the nutrition in case of animals? What is actually happening there? What is actually happening is there. To say that thing, in general, I am going to take an example. I am going to give a chapati to you. Is it possible to take that chapati in only one take, in only one step? Is it possible that you are going to eat that chapati in only one step? We are going to take the chapati and we are going to eat it. Is it possible? No. Is it possible to take roti in only one step? We are going to take that roti in only one step. Is it possible? It is also not possible. In the same manner, our body is not going to utilize the carbohydrate, fats, vitamins, proteins in only one part, in only one step. In only one step it is not possible. If you take the example of the chapati like this, if you compare the chapati like carbohydrate is also made from the complex components. It is also made from the complex components. In our body is not going to utilize the complex component. It is not going to utilize the complex component. So that how we are going to make the pieces of the chapati for the purpose of the eating. In the same manner, these complex components should break down into the simple components. These complex components should be break down into the simple component, so that these simple components can be utilized by the body. Body cannot utilize these components, the bigger components, complex components. They only utilize the smaller components. So that as we know that it is not possible to intake all the chapati at once. For that reason, we are going to make a small pieces of those chapatis. In the same manner, we are going to make the smaller pieces of the chicken or mutton, so that we can go to intake those things. In the same manner, in our human body, it is not possible for human body to utilize all the nutrients in complex component type, so that they should break down this complex component into the smaller components. It should be break down into the smaller components. So that if we take the example of carbohydrates, there will be complex carbohydrates. Those complex carbohydrates should be converted into simpler carbohydrates. Then only our body is going to utilize. Then only the body of animal beings it is going to utilize. In the same manner, fats also going to be converted into smaller units. Vitamins, proteins, those all things should be converted into smaller units. Then only it is going to utilize those things. After that thing, the nutrition in the animal beings is going to complete. Up to that point, it is not going to be completed. It is not going to be completed. We are going to intake those things, and we should convert those things into the smaller units or some smaller components. after that our body is going to utilize those things. So that this breakdown of the complex components is nothing but the digestion. In general we can say that digestion. So the digestion is nothing but breakdown of the complex component into simple component is known as digestion. Breakdown of the complex component into the simple component is known as what? It is known as digestion. So that in taking up the food, that food should be converted into smaller component, then only our body is going to utilize it. Up to that point, nutrition in plants or nutrition in animal beings is not over. Up to the point of the utilization, after the utilization, nutrition in animal beings is completed. So all the nutrients should be intaken, it should be converted into breakdown into smaller units, those things should be utilized by our body, then only the nutrition in animals is going to be completed. So that this general process is nothing but it is the digestion. If you take the example of human being, which start from the right hand and which is going to end from the left hand. So in detail we are going to discuss about all those things in the next class. In the next class we are going to discuss about the digestion in humans. We are going to discuss about the digestion in humans, that is nothing but nutrition in humans. How actually they are going to intake the food, what is going to happen in the mouth, how they are going to break down those food items into smaller units, how they are going to utilize those food items by these different parameters, different components of our body, then how we are going to eject, how we are going to excrete the last component, waste particles from our body. So that all those things we are going to discuss in the detail in the next class about our body, how we are going to do digestion in our body in the next class. Up to that point, what we have to do, we have to make this list also. As well as along with that, you should draw the diagram for the digestion in humans. Accurately draw the digestion of the humans as well as label the parts of those things, so that while discussing those things, it will be easy to you to understand those things. In which part what is happening. In mouth what is happening, in esophagus what is happening, in stomach what is happening, in small intestine what is happening, in large intestine what is happening, along with that anus what is happening, anus what is happening. So that we should discuss in detail by using that diagram. So that for that reason draw the diagram accurately, correctly. Along with that label the parts. We are going to discuss these things in detail in the next class. Up to that point, thank you, take care, stay well, stay home.